Next on Tider Insider TV, Alabama and Florida meet this weekend in the regular season. The stage has changed, the players to some degree have changed, but the importance of the game has not changed. We'll preview the Tide and the Gators from A to Z. Also ahead, did the Alabama defense grow up some last weekend against Arkansas? We'll have all these stories and more. Tider Insider TV starts right now.
Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Had to change up that right now a little bit. Everybody's brother goes right now. You know, I had to put a little more emphasis on it. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome into Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock Diet Mountain Dew, our beverage of choice. This evening, alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris, and Rodney, we've got another jam-packed show. Our John Huddleston has got it loaded, so let's get right to it. And we start, of course, with Alabama and Florida. Now, if you've been living under a rock, you may not know that these two teams have had some history in recent years. In 2008, Alabama lost to Florida in the SEC championship game, ruining the Tide's perfect season, and the Gators went on to win the national championship. And then in 2009, both teams were undefeated. Alabama got its revenge, beating Florida, and the Tides climbed to a 13th national championship. This weekend, the two schools will meet in the regular season for the first time since '06. That game was in Gainesville. Coach Nick Saban says while the stage and players may have changed, his team's approach has not. Next on Tider Insider Television, Alabama won, but the Tide's offensive struggles continued against Ole Miss. Will Bama turn the tide this weekend on Rocky Top? And speaking of the Big Orange, can Derek Dooley mount a challenge against his mentor, Nick Saban? TITV has the answers to those questions and more, and it starts right now.
He is basically...
Go inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV with Rodney Orr and Gary Harris.
Daniel Lincoln from 45 yards out to win it for the Volunteers. The snap, the spot. The kick is blocked! It's blocked by Alabama! It is blocked by Alabama! The Crimson Tide wins! The Crimson Tide wins! The Crimson Tide wins!
That still puts a smile on your face, doesn't it,
I
Rodney?
remember your words just before the kick. You remember?
Going down?
Going down.
Well, Bama found a way. But you know what? A year makes a big difference. Gone are a lot of the guys that made that victory possible against the Vols last year. Gone is the coach at Tennessee who promised revenge against the Tide. But still, here we are, and we've got a great show on tap for you. Good evening and welcome into Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock, bottlers of fine soft drinks like Diet Pepsi, which we'll be enjoying tonight. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm Gary Harris, and we begin with Alabama's struggles on offense, Rodney. It's all anybody that follows the Tide wants to talk about. Now, Bama made some plays against Ole Miss, including an 85-yard catch and run on a screen pass for Trent Richardson, but still, you know, to be honest, there weren't enough of the explosive plays that Nick Saban craves. Alabama only scored once in the second half, and for the second week in a row, sacks were an issue. Greg McElroy went down 4 times behind the line of scrimmage. Now, again, Alabama won the game, Rodney. That's the bottom line, but still offensively, you just feel like they're going to have to play better than they're playing right now if they're going to get to where they want to get.
Well, Gary, you remember last year in the Ole Miss game, Alabama struggled a little bit. They struggled throughout this same stretch. And again, I think there's a lot of reasons for it. I think at this time, you know, Alabama's a little bit tired. I don't think there's any question about that. They're not playing with as much confidence, I don't think. Obviously, they have a few injuries. You lost DJ Fluke at right tackle, though Alfred McCullough did play really well and was named one of the game players of the week by the coaching staff. So, but I do think there are some things coming into play, and I think a lot of that is, you know, you look at the passing game. You and I have talked about that and throwing the ball down the field. And Greg McElroy, you know, he went through that stretch last year, as you remember, and he missed Julio Jones here Saturday night, had him open for a touchdown. Those are the kind of plays you have to make. You know, one thing is obvious. Teams are crowding the line of scrimmage, now, if you want to say in the box or whatever your terminology is, but Alabama got a lot of man coverage against Ole Miss, and they just really didn't take advantage of it. You know, they had Earl Alexander. You remember the play? They had him on the slant, and they missed him overthrow. And again, I think it's just, you know, once Greg gets back into a rhythm, I think that, you know, some of these pass plays are going to connect, and I think that's going to help the passing game. Now, interestingly enough, Greg said yesterday he thought the running game needed to start clicking to help the passing game. So, you know, we'll see.
Well, it will be interesting, that's for sure. And you know, some coaches, when things don't go well, they want to tinker with the game plan, swap personnel in and out. Nick Saban really not one of those kind of coaches, though.
I think you have to stay aggressive, you know, in what you're doing. When things, you know, maybe don't go well, you get a little defensive in how you attack, and that's not a good way to be. It's hard to say giddy up, whoa, and the horse really know what to do. You're sending a mixed message there. So, you know, we want to be aggressive, we want to be attacking, and, you know, we have to do those things.
But, you know, we are hearing this message every week from Coach Saban. He's saying we got to get more explosive plays. We've got to get the vertical passing game going. We've got to attack. But then on Saturday, you're not necessarily seeing that come to fruition. You know, what's happening?
Well, and again, I think, you know, we talked about this last week. I think that the goal last week was to get through the game, win these next two games. Obviously, the goal is to win every game. But, you know, I think, you know, once Alabama has the off week, has a chance to regroup. I think you remember last year against LSU in the LSU game here in Tuscaloosa, Alabama came out wide open offense first half and then went to pounding the football in the second half. They connected on some throws and things started to kind of mesh together. And I think that's might be what we're, you know, headed towards again this year.
Well, Saturday night would be a good night to get it started up there on Rocky Top. Well, the defense didn't play a perfect game, but I tell you what, they were pretty good on Saturday night. Ole Miss came in as the highest scoring offense in the Southeastern Conference, averaging about 37 points a game. Rodney, they got 10, and in fairness to the defense, their only touchdown came after Marquise Mays fumbled a punt on about the 22-yard line. So the defense, after a disappointing showing at South Carolina, really stepped it up against the Rebels.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe it was Alabama's best all-around defensive performance of the year. Again, Ole Miss came in averaging 37 points a game. And, you know, I sung the praises of Jeremiah Masoli. I still think he's an outstanding player. If he were still at Oregon, he'd probably be one of the top 5 guys for the Heisman right now. But, you know, they did an outstanding job on him. They pressured him. He was throwing off his back foot all night long. You know, as far as pressure goes, it might have been the best job they've done all year. I know they did an excellent job on, you know, in the Florida game as well. But I thought they did an outstanding job against Ole Miss.
Well, next up is Tennessee, the annual showdown with the Vols, one of the great rivalries in all of college football, not just the South. I don't like it when it's on the 4th Saturday. This game's supposed to be on the 3rd Saturday. It is on the 4th Saturday this year. Matter of fact, it's on October 23rd. The other 2 times the Tide and the Vols played on October 23rd, including 1999. Bama lost both of them, but certainly these are 2 different teams. And personnel-wise, there's just no denying that Alabama has an edge.
Yeah, Tennessee's down. There's no question about it. Derek Dooley has inherited a tough job for many reasons, and one of those is they don't have a lot of players, Gary, but you know, they have played hard. We've watched them in many games where they've, you know, competed well. For instance, in this Florida game right here and the LSU game, that wild finish, almost won that game. And then again, they did not look so good, I guess you could say, against UAB, where they pulled out a 32-29 overtime win there. So, you know, again, it's going to be in Knoxville. They have a week off. They're going to be rested. I know they're a little bit beat up, but I think they're going to, you know, present Alabama with a very difficult game.
Yeah, another team with an off week, and, you know, I know the numbers might say otherwise, but I think it makes a huge difference, and Alabama will get Tennessee's best shot, just like they did from Ole Miss. You know, Ole Miss played a pretty good football game at the Tide, able to get the W. Well, still to come on TITV, Bama is still alive in the BCS standings, regardless of what you might be hearing. What has to happen for the Tide to play for a second consecutive national title? We'll break that down. Plus, LSU and Auburn both remain undefeated, but it is Alabama that some feel is still the team to beat in the SEC West. And, of course, we're going to be getting your phone calls and emails as we do every week. There is the phone number you need to reach us on your television screen. Also, the email address is there as well. Stay tuned. You're watching the show that takes you inside the Tide, the one, the only Tider Insider TV, presented by Buffalo Rock. Football recruiting news with Rodney Orr in a moment, but first we're going to talk to you about one of my favorite places to eat in Tuscaloosa, Nuke's Express Cafe, 205 University Boulevard East, just right up from the University of Alabama campus, open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week, and it's all fresh. Whether it's an oven-toasted sandwich, a California-style pizza, a hand-tossed salad, or one of those great soups, everything's made with fresh ingredients on the spot. You order, you sit down, they bring you your food hot and fresh. They got a beer and wine menu, got a terrific dessert menu featuring cakes, brownies, and Rice Krispie treats. Call them for your catering needs, 758-2455. That's Nuke's Express Cafe in Tuscaloosa. Now, the football recruiting in Alabama is still working on getting a great 2011 class, but also already getting ready for 2012. 3 commitments already for 2012. The latest coming last week, Rodney. Dakota Ball, a big defensive lineman, tight end type out of Pepperell High School in Lindale, Georgia. 6'2", about 287 pounds. This is a guy that's got one of those motors that runs all the time, maybe a nasty streak. Your thoughts on Dakota Ball? Kind of,
you know, and again, not necessarily comparing him physically or anything, but he kind of reminds you of that mentality of Jarrett Johnson.
Right.
You remember when he came out of high school, and you know, this kid, he really loves the game, does everything full blast, and you know, we were talking to his high school coach last week and said, you know, the best thing about him, he's talented, but he also outworks everyone. So again, I think it's a big pickup heading into next year, and he's you know, he is a talent, Gary. There's no question about that.
And seems to have some leadership qualities,
Yeah,
which
definitely.
obviously we're seeing this year. With
Very
losing a guy like
important.
Rolando McClain, it's a big part of your defensive
Very,
success.
very important, you know, to have that kind of leadership that he brings, and I think in future years he'll be a guy that certainly you know, fills that role at Alabama.
All right, 3 commitments already for 2012 for the Crimson Tide. Well, the BCS standings have been released, the first of the year, and despite some panic by Alabama fans after the loss to South Carolina, it's not all lost when it comes to the national championship race. We'll discuss what has to happen for Alabama to play in Glendale, Arizona for the national title. Plus, we'll be taking your phone calls and getting your emails. Give us a ring now if you want to get through at 205-348-9882, or you can email us at TITV@WVUATV.com. BCS, your phone calls and more when we come back.